The following podcast is provided by Era Living, innovator in residential retirement options since 1987. And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network. On behalf of Era Living, to each and every one of you, we have a very, very special guest. And this is an event for so many of us that have a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia. It's tools for caregivers. It's tools for families on how to support that loved one the very best. And I am so excited to have this guest with us, Mr. David Troxel. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Suzanne. Great to be with you.
And you are an amazing human being. For those of you that are here joining us and have not heard of David, he's the co-author of The Best Friends Approach to Dementia Care. And you've written a lot of different books on dementia. And David, tell me, just before we even start with our interview, I want to know a little bit about you and your background. What got you into this world?
Well, thank you, Suzanne. Actually, I have a master's degree in public health from Rutgers School of Public Health, Rutgers Medical School. But I got my first job in dementia care in the 1980s, late 80s, for the University of Kentucky Alzheimer's Research Center, which was then just one of 10 federally funded centers in the whole country. And it was really through a friend of a friend I got this job offer. I moved from New Jersey to Kentucky. Very serendipitous. That's where I met my longtime writing partner, Virginia Bell, who just recently passed away at almost 101 years old after an amazing life.
Oh my goodness.
And so, I sometimes say to younger people I talk to, don't feel like you have to plan everything out. When I got hired, I didn't even know what Alzheimer's disease was, but somehow they took a chance on me. And the rest, as they say, is history. I knew on day one that I was in the right place. I've always loved elders. Loved medicine, science, and have just had an amazing, wonderful career with so many wonderful people that I've had a chance to collaborate with over the years.
David, it's true that so many of us, we get into this industry due to a certain, winding path that just by coincidentally we end up here and then we never leave. I can't
Correct.
imagine going anywhere else in the world doing having the feeling every day that that you're making a difference. And I think that's something that you must feel in, overwhelmingly of all the things that you do. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about you from our staff at Air Living, and they integrate a lot of your best friends approach to dementia care. So I want to talk about the best friends approach, how you came up with it, and what is it?
Well, a couple of things. Back in those dark days of the 80s, so to speak, it was a time where there was a lot of stigma about the disease. Still, we didn't know a lot about how to help people with the disease. And my colleague, Virginia Bell, had founded one of the first adult day centers in the country. It's still going strong. I joined them very quickly after they started. And back then, people would bring mom and dad or their husband and wife partner to the day center, and they'd say, nothing's working. Mom fights me all day. Nothing. She won't do this. She can't do this. Well, we created this day program, Suzanne, which was lively. It had socialization, engagement, music, art. We had wonderful volunteers who were actually called best friends. And we kind of had, as Oprah would say, one of those light bulb moments where what happened is people would come to the center whose own families had labeled them difficult, and they'd have a delightful day. They'd dance and enjoy things. And that's when we kind of had that aha moment that actually you can create a therapeutic environment for people living with dementia, an environment that's healing. And we through our work, we realized the power of socialization. And so we came up with this idea of the best friends approach to Alzheimer's care, which simply says that what people with dementia need is a best friend. Because after all, what friends do is they're empathetic, they communicate, they do things together. They're creative problem solvers. They're warm, they're loving, and people with dementia respond to that. Behaviors go down, cooperation goes up, happiness goes up, self-esteem goes up, and everything goes better for the family and the person living with dementia.
Yeah. And David, what you say is so valuable because when I sit back and I think about when I took care of my mom, I always used to say, everybody would say, oh, we've got this service for your mom. We're going to do this and that. And I was the caregiver, right? I didn't know necessarily how to handle certain questions, especially when she didn't know how to answer them correctly. I tried very hard to, intercede. And oftentimes when I would try to intercede, she'd get angry with me, which is typical. It wasn't my question to answer. What I have found with, your type of program is it really helps families, instead of being against, it's to align. How is that a proper description?
Well, I'll approach it this way. I think
Okay.
you're spot on. I think you're spot on, but I'll approach it this way, which is we've learned over the years that there's kind of a right way and a wrong way to be an
Mhm.
effective caregiver. You
Yeah.
need to learn some of the strategies. The idea of learning even the most basic things like not to argue. If someone says President Obama is doing a great job, you say, I like him too, not what's wrong with you. He's not the president. Again,
Yeah.
keeping them engaged. I
Mhm.
think boredom is the enemy with dementia care. So
Mhm.
music and exercise and being outside on a beautiful day,
Yeah.
engagement, communication, giving lots of compliments, being less analytical. You don't want to give a PowerPoint to mom with dementia. Here's 27 reasons you need to do this. You want to appeal
Yeah.
to their emotion. And so when you learn these things, and I like to call it kind of recasting the relationship and say,
Mhm.
how can I be a friend to my mother? How can I kind of support her? What happens, Suzanne, is you learn techniques that are effective. Plus, and this is the huge payoff, you don't become the bad guy. And
Yeah.
often the best caregivers become the bad guy because
Mhm.
you don't mean to, but you're giving orders, you're bossing the person around, and instead of kind of understanding their experience, you're trying to do your best,
Mhm.
but the person may not even realize that they have these issues.
Yeah.
Why is my son taking away my car? Why is my son taking away my money? And so we need
Very
to learn.
true.
I call it the knack, Knack, the art of doing difficult
Yes.
things with ease. And so a friend of mine, real quick, I mean, he wouldn't give up the car. She was fighting with him. Their relationship was strained. He would say, I haven't had a ticket in 30 years. What's wrong with you? That doctor doesn't know what they're saying. I don't have any problem. Well, she finally, instead of just fighting, she turned him in anonymously to the DMV here in California. That means that they come and they ask him to take a test. It's not an automatic revocation. And instead of the daughter taking away the license, the DMV did. Blame
Mhm.
somebody else, take advantage of the system, blame the
Yeah.
doctor
Yeah.
even. And you learn these things. And when they took away the license, the daughter said, I'm so sorry this happened to you.
Mhm.
What can I do to help? Instead
Yeah.
of what's wrong, dot, dot, dot.
It's so interesting. I did a similar thing, only I used the doctor. And
Mhm.
my mother's doctor was amazing because I told him that she had 3 car accidents in the last 6 months. She can't drive anymore. And he just told this pipe dream that he was contacted by her insurance company, which where he got that, I don't know. But he goes, I have to certify you that you're okay to drive, and I can't do that.
Mhm.
That's what he said to her. So
Right.
again, same kind of thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, you are the greatest guy. But I also think being a team and, allowing support people like this to be able to
Yes.
say, you need to work with me here and be that person. I also learned when you go see the doctor, instead of talking about concerns, I used to write things on a note, just in a note, and hand it in a white envelope when we checked into the doctor, so I could just stay quiet during the doctor visit. Those were things I learned in the process, which I think is pretty much like what you're talking about.
Right. I mean, a few other tips. I know our time is short. I'll just throw them out there. One is I think that it's important for people who are caring for your family
Mhm.
member to know their social histories. Like
Yeah.
I need to have my cup of coffee in the morning before I get going, or
Mhm.
else I'm in a bad space. My late mother, Dorothy, who passed away with Alzheimer's in 2008, she actually lived in assisted living for 3 years in memory care. Well, she was Canadian. She loved Earl Grey tea with milk. When she was having a
Yeah.
bad day, the staff would give those to her. So one suggestion, I think Era Living does their own version of it. They could probably give you a copy. Is
Yes.
create a little top 10 card about mom and dad. Here are some things. My dad was born in Honolulu. He loves being out in nature and the ocean. Ask him about winning the Physician of
Mhm.
the Year award in Seattle, or he loves
Yeah.
working with hands, loves being outdoors. He'll do anything for chocolate. And you have this little top
That's
10 card.
perfect.
And so if your dad has to go to the ER, bring the top 10 card, or maybe his name is William, but his nickname is Billy. You want the professionals to call him by his
Yes.
preferred name. So little things like a top 10 card for any caregivers who come into the house, or assisted living, I think is very important. And then, certainly learn all you can. The Alzheimer's Association is tremendous. My friends at Era Living do a lot of workshops and seminars. I think that's very important, because the more you learn, the better off you are. And I guess my other tip, Suzanne, for you and your listeners or viewers is don't wait till you use services. Families so often will, well, maybe later, maybe this, maybe that. You want to get all your legal financial affairs in order, and then investigate that adult day center, investigate the in-home services. Even if you're not sure that you're going to be there someday, I encourage people to visit the assisted living communities, make a plan, because you don't want to have to make a decision in an emergency.
Yeah. Well, and what I love is you work directly with Era Living on a lot of these types of approaches and the programs that Era Living provides, which is such a benefit for families, which tells me a lot about their not only commitment to their residents, but also the families that are there, that love them. And I think that's the key in all of this, David. So do you guys work collaboratively? I know you're partners, but explain to me a little bit how your program plays out.
Well, I'm very honored. And by the way, I have even though I live in California, I went to a little college called Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh, yay.
So I know a lot of people in the Northwest.
One of my closest friends went to Whitman as well.
It was a great experience. I loved it. Although when I was there, it was not the fancy wine town it is now. I think we were excited by the new McDonald's opening.
Yes, exactly.
With Era Living, I'm so honored. They've adopted the Best Friends philosophy, sort of their formal model of care. And so I've done a lot of lecturing, speaking, visiting with the team, planning, and they do a lovely job at Era Living. I think they understand about the power of music and socialization, and that the staff, again, should be a little less task-oriented, a little bit more person-centered, and that actually is very successful, creating this sort of socialization, social environment. So I'm honored to come up to Seattle now and then and do some speaking and visiting.
Well, when you get up here, we are going to definitely want to connect with you. There's so many things I think that you help families with that are needing this kind of information. And I know that with our, reach and with Senior Resource and all the different things, I would love to do more collaboration with you and, of course, with Era Living, because there's so many things that we can help our families with. And that, I think, is the main piece of all of this. So, David, it's just been such an honor to have you, and I want to have you back soon. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you. Thank you for your good work and doing such a great job with educating our families and friends about the important issues around elder care.
Oh, thank you, David. And for each and every one of you, if you're looking for more information on dementia care, on assisted living, or anything, go to Era Living's website. That's www.eraliving.com. Or you can just check out their podcasts on Answers for Elders, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Until next week, be good to each other. Era Living is locally owned and operates 8 premier retirement communities in Seattle, Renton, Mercer Island, Bellevue, and Issaquah. From vibrant, independent living to compassionate assisted living to secure memory care, Era Living respects and honors older adults by enhancing the quality of their lives. Learn more at eraliving.com.